So the CNN Democratic Town Hall has just finished, and I wanted to give you guys my opinion on both of the candidates' performance tonight. So getting started, I'll go ahead and start with Bernie Sanders. I have less to say about him because I agreed with 100% of what he had to say. He didn't say anything that I wanted to push back on, but I'll just kind of tell you what I think about his performance. So I thought that he was really strong on institutional racism. He was good on the veterans question because a lot of people fail to realize that Bernie Sanders has a ton of veterans for him. If you want to know about that, search veterans for Bernie Sanders on the internet. Now, he was also good on showing why Hillary Clinton is not a progressive and why he is, because I mean, when it comes to issues such as her Wall Street donations, the Iraq War, these disastrous free trade deals, you can't be a progressive and support them. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing that Hillary Clinton is not a progressive. It's not inherently evil to, vary on the political ideological spectrum, but you have to at least be honest about it. And she was honest before. So when she said that, people accuse me of being a moderate sometimes, guilty. There's nothing wrong with that, and I actually appreciate that. I disagree with you because I think that what's, considered as moderate for U.S. political standards is right-wing. But at the same time, you have to be honest about these kinds of things. Voters aren't stupid. They know that you are a centrist. So I like that he kind of made those distinctions. Now, it was good for him to critique Obama because Obama is not above criticism. Well, actually, let me walk back. So it's not necessarily good for Bernie Sanders to critique Obama because he has a relatively high approval rating among Democratic voters. However, at the same time, people are frustrated with him, especially progressives. So you do want to push back against some of Obama's policies, but the way that Bernie Sanders did this was genius. So he critiqued Obama. But then he complimented him afterwards. So when you really emphasize, the compliment rather than the criticism, and you downplay that, I think that's absolutely brilliant. So I'm glad that Bernie Sanders said this. Now, finally, when it comes to the question of his electability, he did really great at thoroughly explaining why, he is generating a lot of excitement. He could pull in young voters. I believe the number was 80% or 70% of young people who voted, who's under the age of 25 in Iowa, have all sided with Bernie Sanders. I mean, this is crazy. This is basically the excitement that Barack Obama generated in 2008. Also, he mentioned how, he's generating a lot of support from independents. Again, such a phenomenal point. So Bernie Sanders, he did good overall. The only thing I would say is that he wasn't 100% on his game. So I wish that he was a bit more energetic. I wish that, he was a little bit more funny. You can tell he's kind of tired. So I wish he was kind of his quirky self more so. But I mean, at the same time, a lot of questions were asked that were pretty substantive. And when it got to the personal stuff, which, I typically push back against, but I've seen every debate so far. I've seen every town hall. And I basically know the answers before the candidates give them, so I guess it was refreshing finally to, hear a little bit about both of the candidates. That goes, the same for Hillary Clinton as well. So let me get to Hillary Clinton. So here's the thing about Hillary Clinton. I thought that she had a great start for me personally. So I always think that Hillary Clinton she's always been such a charismatic speaker. She's strong. She's actually really endearing. Like I actually feel as though, she's someone who would be interesting to have a conversation with. And she really was having me thinking, wow, she's doing a great job this time. But then she really starts to get into, talking about policy more in depth. And then, yeah, she lost me and lost me a lot. So now she kind of also pushed back on the claim that, she's not a progressive. And she said, well, by Bernie Sanders standards and, the standards of progressives, well, then Obama and Jeanne Shaheen and Joe Biden all wouldn't be considered progressives. We don't consider them progressives at all. We thought Obama was a progressive, but that turned out to be false. He was progressive on a very few select set of issues, not on much. So, no, they're not. And furthermore, it bugs me to no end when she gets offended by the fact that Bernie Sanders calls the Human Rights Campaign and Planned Parenthood establishment. She doesn't like when he calls them that. But the people on their board, the presidents of these companies, they are part of the establishment. They are. I'm sorry, that's just a fact. So if you don't like it, then I'm sorry, but it's a fact. And seeing that you're part of the establishment as well, Hillary Clinton, it would be good for you to not take that as a diss. Pull a Jeb Bush and say, look, whatever, if that makes me establishment to be, part of this political class, to be within the circles, then sure, I'll take it as a compliment. Just run away with it. I mean, don't try to push back against it because it makes you look disingenuous. So when it comes to the issue of young female supporters and how Bernie Sanders is ahead among millennial women by 70 points, I felt like she didn't do a very good job of convincing younger women to jump on board. So there's also the question where the woman said, look, I have $5 or $4 daughters, and they're all feeling the burn, unfortunately, which that's not unfortunate, but so she asked basically, how do we get them to jump on board? And what Hillary said, that how could any of Bernie Sanders' proposals be achievable? That's basically the pitch. And that is a terrible pitch because that's really the crux of the issue, right? For someone who is being fed scraps by the establishment, who feels like Barack Obama, is just taking incremental steps to progress, for how much work we have to get done, we don't want you to say, look, I know that, you want a $15 minimum wage, but sorry, that's just impossible. I mean, we've overcome so much crazy things in this country that I don't think that it's effective and beneficial to say some things are just off the table because they're so impossible. I don't think that that is, one, a smart way to run your campaign, because that's not inspirational. How is that going to inspire us or galvanize us to vote for you? And two, it's untrue. Do I think that universal health care is a possibility? Yes, I do. In fact, I think it's an inevitability in the United States. Maybe not right away. Maybe, even 50 years down the line. It's something that someday we're going to have to wake up and see that our current system is not working. Now, there's barriers to that. It's going to be difficult. We have to get money out of politics first because the entire Democratic Party and Republican Party is basically bought off by the health insurance industry, and they're not going to budge. We couldn't even get a public option because private insurance companies didn't want to compete with, the government and their own healthcare plan, and basically they threatened to just pour money into the opponents of Democratic congressmen and women if they chose a public option. So look, it's something that is difficult, but I mean, that's not the spirit of the people. I mean, what was Obama's campaign slogan? It was, yes, we can. And that is really how a lot of people feel. And I truly do feel that way. I'm very optimistic about what we can achieve. I mean, look at how fast we moved on marriage equality. Look at Social Security. We got Social Security. I mean, an actual socialist program, and it's one of the most popular social safety net programs ever. So don't tell me that, this is not pragmatic and it's not possible. And even if something like, a $15 minimum wage is impossible, well, if you start at $12, you're screwing yourself. At least start at $15 so that way when you go into negotiations with Republicans, they can't knock you down even further than $12. So you have to start with a really strong negotiating position. But if you already compromise before you go into negotiations, you're just screwing yourself. But anyways, so getting to the other stuff. So when it comes to the question where she talked about end-of-life choices and the guy had asked that question, I thought that it looked like a dodge when she said that, she wouldn't directly answer whether or not she supports broadening end-of-life decisions. Basically, this was about death with dignity, right? So there's a policy that, in Oregon, for example, if your death is inevitable and you don't want to suffer, you have the right to end your life. And that's something that is a no-brainer. I mean, this isn't something that is endorsing self-harm. It's just allowing people to have dignity and to choose whether or not they want to suffer, how long they want to be here. And I think that that's a human right. So that shouldn't be complicated for anyone to answer. So I would expect Hillary to jump on board with that. But I kind of saw her dodging that question. And I think it's because she wants to see what the polls say, because it is a controversial issue. Now, let's see here. So when it comes to the interventionist question, I thought that she actually answered the question truthfully. I believed her. But I thought she gave a bad answer because I don't agree with, her foreign policy decisions and whatnot. Now, when it comes to, the Iraq War and whether or not she learned her lesson, she says she does, but she hasn't, because she's still proposing policies that are very harmful. So she wants to institute a Syrian no-fly zone, for example, which is terrible. It's a bad policy. You basically impose this arbitrary no-fly zone on Russia. You tell them, look, Russia, you are not allowed to fight ISIS. And if you fly within this no-fly zone, we're going to have to shoot down your plane. That's just bad policy. You're gonna escalate tensions with Russia and potentially put us on a path towards World War III or potentially reignite the Cold War. We don't need to do this, okay? They're fighting ISIS. Let them fight ISIS. So, okay. Now I want to talk about marijuana first before I get to the last topic. So on marijuana, the question was asked whether or not, she would do anything about decriminalization, but that's the wrong question to answer at this point, okay? Let's stop asking about decriminalization. Let's demand legalization. She says that Hillary Clinton, that is, says we have to do more research. No, the verdict is in. Okay, we can continue to do research, but for those of you who continue to perpetuate the myth that marijuana is a gateway drug, well, you're just factually incorrect. And furthermore, I want to give Hillary Clinton a piece of advice right now that I think is absolutely essential. It'll really help her campaign, okay? So, Hillary, do you remember how you took a really long time to evolve on some issues? I mean, I'm talking about gay marriage. You didn't fully endorse marriage equality until 2013. DOMA. You didn't stop defending DOMA until 2007. The Iraq War. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Keystone XL pipeline. So remember how you took so long to get on board the issues that progressives wanted you to get on board with, and it hurt you? Well, you're doing that again with marijuana. Get on board with full legalization, okay? You can even make the case that, this is a states' rights issue, but you better make a really, really strong case for that, okay? Because it does not make sense to no longer be on board. This is a progressive issue, and you are not going to appeal to younger people if you don't get on board with this, because younger people don't want to be locked up for smoking weed. It's less harmful than drinking alcohol, yet everyone does that. Nobody questions that. So it's time for the entire Democratic Party to get on board with marijuana. Okay, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be legal. It may still be stigmatized, but that doesn't matter. Okay, we're all adults. We can make our own decisions. If we want to smoke pot, we can smoke pot, okay? As long as you're not harming anybody else, then you need to make sure that you give people the absolute and utmost liberty to do what they want. Furthermore, this policy, decriminalizing marijuana and whatnot, this has racial consequences, right? So both African Americans, Latinos, and white people, they smoke marijuana at about the same rate. When it comes to drugs, white people actually do more drugs than African Americans and Latinos overall. But the problem is that they get locked up way more than us. So, you have to look at the full scale of consequences. We're done, okay? Marijuana needs to be legalized. You have to jump on board. Stop taking forever. If you're a progressive, be progressive, okay? Stop, having us drag you along. Just actually get on the right side of an issue for once. Okay, so finally, when it comes to Wall Street and, how, she can defend against her contributions to them, she gave such a terrible defense. Again, she comes out with, quote, "I called them out." That just makes you look out of touch. We don't care if you called them out. I want to know what actual policies and regulations you'll implement to stop their criminatory behavior. And she talks about how Wall Street, they're spending so much money to defeat me. Yeah, well, they're also spending money. Certain banks are spending money to help your campaign. They've given you millions. So when you talk about, Bernie Sanders' target is too small, I want to do more than go after Wall Street. Well, it makes you sound like a hypocrite, especially when you tout, Dodd-Frank as something, that's substantive. That is not anything to brag about. Dodd-Frank is watered down regulation, and it keeps getting more and more watered down, okay? Dodd-Frank is not the solution. It's not the answer. If we can strengthen Dodd-Frank, then sure. But as it stands now, Dodd-Frank is not effective Wall Street reform. Now, when it comes to, her speeches for Goldman Sachs, oh my god, it was cringeworthy. She did so bad. So when she said that she wasn't sure if she'd run, that was the most disingenuous thing she said all night. We all knew that, she was going to run. There was no doubt in her mind. There was no doubt in anyone's minds. We knew that she had, been intending to run. So when she said that, that made me cringe because it was just so disingenuous. Now, she also said, when it comes to, money influencing her, she said, "I challenge my opponents to name anything that moneyed interests have influenced me on. Okay, I can name one easily. I could name 10, 20, but I don't want to be here all night, so I'll just name one because that's what you challenged me to do. So the Saudis had donated to the Clinton Foundation, and then subsequently, when you were Secretary of State, you gave them a weapons deal. Now, why would someone who is rational, who knows about foreign policy, who knows about the extremist Saudi Wahhabist regime, why on earth would you give them a weapons deal? I don't even have to tell you why that's a bad idea. Why would you do that unless you were influenced by that donation from the Clinton Foundation? And this is just one of other instances where this is the case too. So we don't believe that you are not going to be influenced by money. Why would you give speeches on behalf of Goldman Sachs if you aren't going to be speaking out for them? You know what I mean? I just feel like she will never learn why this is bad. So she needs to she has to come up with some other answer, because she's doing a horrible job. And anytime this comes up, it's terrible. So anyways, that is basically, my assessment. I'm not going to tell you, who I think won or lost. I'll do that tomorrow for the Democratic debate. But I really thought that Hillary Clinton was off to a good start because, she has a great personality. I'll say that about Hillary Clinton. Really like her personality. If, we just remove her from politics, but when she starts getting into policy and her opinions on policies, she loses me so fast, no matter how hard I try, to at least be somewhat accepting of Hillary Clinton and possibly, being the next president. I can't. You know what I mean? She's not a progressive. She's wrong on so many policy areas. And that's not someone who I want as my Democratic nominee. So anyways, that's my thoughts, guys. I will be back here tomorrow with also another audio, unfortunately, review of the MSNBC debate. But yeah, I'll see you then. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my analysis.